How are you caring for yourself while working to be politically informed and engaged? Are you caring for yourself? Bonjour, and welcome back to Blumera Podcast. I'm your host, Brienne, and today I am sitting with Sammy Kanter from Girl in the Gov to discuss caring for yourself during stressful political times and how to spark change in your own community by becoming the influencer, if you will, in your own social circles and group chats. We talk about easy activism for busy people, how to get involved without burning out, and discussing politics with friends and family. This interview was recorded last spring. I tend to do my interviews once a year, which means you may notice that some of the topics that we discussed happened a while back, but are unfortunately still relevant. I just didn't want the timing to confuse you. Now let's get right into the call because I have been waiting to share it with you. This is such a relevant topic and I'm so happy to have you here with me. For listeners who are new to the term, what does civic wellness mean to you and why is it just as important as mental or physical wellness?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to dive into this and discuss civic wellness. And basically, civic wellness is how you think about how your civic diet is, right? Like, is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? Is it balanced? It's the same way that you would view anything else in your life. Like, do you have a balanced approach of how you're doing something? So, civic wellness, really, in terms of what we look at today, is okay, how engaged with your local government are you? Your state government, your federal, or the federal? There is only one, amazingly. It's so crazy. But nonetheless, your levels of government and at what capacity are you sending, emails in about issues that you care about? Or are you only doing that every, 6 months because you're too busy or there's an issue that only pops up every once in a while? What does that look like? Like, how engaged are you? And to be civically well is to be engaged in a balanced way, meaning you're paying attention, you are, being active member of your community. And you're doing that in a way that doesn't also overwhelm your system and actually becomes counterproductive, right? Because at the end of the day, to be effective, you have to take a balanced approach to truly anything, and that includes civics as well.
This is such a hot topic in all of my friend chats, and I just got out of therapy not too long ago. We were talking again about how to balance that because it is really hard and it is really overwhelming, and it's kind of designed to be that way, like we were saying before I started recording.
Totally. It is really hard to balance. And I think there is a bit of compartmentalizing that needs to happen. I have to be able to be like, okay, I thought about XYZ issue. I thought about my action items for it. And now I'm going to go to dinner with friends and we are going to talk about Summer House for an hour. And then, right, best show ever, I'm obsessed.
Love it.
But it's thinking about, okay, how do we level and layer in things so that there is that balance and that it doesn't feel as overwhelming. And I think one of the things too is like, as you're approaching in any type of environment, whether it's now or in the past or in the future in terms of civics, it is about understanding that having moments of also like joy and happiness and things outside of politics and the civic world that bring you joy. Like those will power you to being more civically engaged and again, like more productive in how you go about that.
What inspired you to connect civic engagement with wellness routines in the first place? Was there like a personal aha moment for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just thinking more, more and more every day. It's like, how do you make your life more balanced? Like, I know I keep saying that word, but it really is about that. And I've been working in the political space for quite some time. And you always have to think about at the end of the day, like, whew, that was a crazy one. How do I take a deep breath from that? How do I, make this sustainable? So wellness just kind of naturally is like a fit within that because you have to be able to not burn out. And there's a lot of burnout within the political space. And also, even if you don't work in it, just consuming what's going on and being engaged and being aware can also burn you out. And when you're burnt out, you can't be effective, you can't take action, or at least in the way that is the most meaningful. And so to me, like those things just automatically became sort of like hand in hand. And I don't know if I had like an exact aha moment. I was like, oh, whoa, like these two things. But I think it's been an evolution of sorts.
I love that. How do you personally integrate civic action into your everyday life, especially during chaotic news cycles or when you feel that burnout?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a little bit of a cheat code on this. I write a newsletter that goes out on Mondays that has civic action items in it. So I have a whole action item section. So for me, I always know, okay, I'm, yes, compiling this on a Sunday or a Monday, but I always know I'm starting the week doing those actions. So I know baseline on the issues, 2 to 3 issues that I include in that newsletter. I have emailed my representatives or whoever the representative is that's relevant in that, of course, it could be leaving a public comment. So I'm doing those things, I'm making those calls, and I'm checking those off the list. So baseline, I've started my week by doing something. And I think that is like the thing, the tangibles. And those are the things that always make me feel better. I've totally in to-do list form checked something off the to-do list. I have done something and taken some action. So I think when feeling overwhelmed, that has always helped. It's like, okay, well, what can I do in this moment? Who can I call? Who can I put a message in front? Because, I can be mad or annoyed or frustrated, whatever, and bring that to the friend group. And that is productive sometimes too, right? Like you are your own friend group's influencer. Like everyone is an influencer in their friend group, right? So sometimes that is productive because you may come up with a solution or a way to approach something, and that's great. And other times it's like, okay, we're just all sort of like yelling into the same abyss in like a way that feels cathartic perhaps, but like there also needs to be, a space outside of that where that goes. So also like outside of your friend group, where else can you take that message? How can you put that together and share it with somebody else that would benefit from understanding what's going on or more information? So I always look at things like in the overwhelm and the burnout, like where are the opportunity points? So that can come in a few different strains, starting with like that newsletter that I write, and then also going out to, again, the friend group. Outside of that, what does that look like?
I'm going to include the newsletter information in the episode description, and I will be joining it because I love that you do a lot of that hard work and provide those action items. I also love that you start your week with that. It almost feels like you start with that win, so it's not weighing on you for the rest of the week, and you're not constantly thinking, what can I do next? What can I do next? You can start out your week thinking, I did something. I did my little part.
Totally. It was meant to be too. And that is a Monday release, intentional for like setting the week, but also because of that, it sort of serves as like an elbow a little bit. Information that you might have missed on a Friday or Thursday that was coming through, or actions you might need to take on those things that were pushed out of the news cycle, gets you there, but it also preps you for the week because there's also stuff coming out on Sunday and Monday, etc. So I always look at it as that sort of like elbow intersection point of like closing a door and also setting another one open with intentionality.
I have listeners constantly asking, what can we do next? What can we do next? So I'm sending them your way.
Love it.
Girl in the Gov is all about rebranding politics. What are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions that you've come across when it comes to getting involved?
Okay, so this one's actually a little bit complex in an answer. I feel like a lot of the what would be considered myths are actually reality. Kind of funky to explain. I think that a lot of people that work in politics have the idea that it's a myth that it's hard to get involved or that there's so much barrier to entry. But the reason that I founded Girl in the Gov was because that was the case. So, and it really started back in 2018. I realized a few of my friends were not registered to vote and didn't vote in the midterm elections following Trump's first win in 2016. And I had to ask the questions of, okay, why though? Like, you guys are very educated, really in the know people. This is so bizarre to me that this wouldn't be the case. Context, my friends are engineers and in finance. So not political industries, etc., or anything like off of that. And their commentary was that it's really intimidating. Like when you don't know where to start, even if it's something you care about and you know is important, you don't know where to like learn the information, how do you actually call your rep? That seems simple, but when it's the information isn't consolidated and it's not your typical lane or what you were taught of like how to do it, you didn't have any civic education. Well, yeah, that is a barrier to entry. So I think that like, unfortunately, there's like a push pull on that. I think once you know some of the mechanisms and some of those actions, right? Like, okay, this is how I'm call my reps. These are some of the scripts or the terms that I can use. This is what's allowed and this is what's not allowed. I think then yes, it becomes easier to do. And yes, then the barriers are way lower. But that starting process, I think it's not just that I know from talking to so many people, it is incredibly intimidating and really overwhelming. I think that the rebrand is trying to lower that point of, that barrier and bring people into the fold with like ways and also like even just jargon, which is kind of an eye roll of a word in and of itself, that's not crazy and intimidating or requires a PhD to understand it. I always, even too, when I'm talking with people in the political space about how they're explaining something to the public, I'm like, if I, who works in said industry, like my eyes glazed over and I don't know what you're talking about, we have a problem, because I can tell you that my entire friend group that literally works in engineering has no idea what you're saying. So, that's why it's sort of a flip of the flop of the question a little bit. You know what I mean? Like the myths and the misconceptions, like they aren't myths and misconceptions, I think for people, again, that are hardo politicos that, really are in it might feel that way, but I would argue counter to it.
You have said that there are no questions too stupid on your podcast. What's one question that you wish more people would ask about politics, but don't, maybe out of fear or shame?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a very, very long list, and I think all of them are in the civics category. So literally, like, one of the biggest misconceptions that I actually come across is, or lack of understanding, dare I say, is the difference between a state legislature and our federal system. So people get very confused that they have a state rep and a state senator, and also then they're federal representatives. So, the question that we get asked a lot is like, wait, so what do they do? Like, what is their role? Like, and then there becomes a confusion. So say for example, we just had this bill pass at the federal level called the SAVE Act. It's a disaster. I hate it. That's my prognosis on it. But without going down that rabbit hole, have people ask about their state reps voting for it. And that's incorrect, because it's a federal bill. It's not possible. But there's that lack of information in between where they don't know the difference. And that's not a stupid question. That's just not something, at least I was ever taught. Like, I was a gov major. So at some point I picked it up personally, but I can tell you that in my elementary through high school education, I never learned the difference between state leg and federal. So that's why we have these questions, and it's not stupid at all. It's actually quite important that, like, people know the difference between their state level representatives and their federal, and like what that means for them, or, how that's going to impact their day to day, and like what they can actually do about it, because also the solutions for those things vary vastly. How you're going to be able to vote, or your county party versus your state, there's just a lot of differences. So we get a lot of questions on that. They're not stupid, and they're really, I can tell you, there's truly no stupid question in politics. It is convoluted.
That's so freeing to hear, and allows space for people to not know and to create that curiosity to go find out for themselves, instead of just feeling overwhelmed that they just don't know.
Totally. And I would like add to that too, for say somebody's listening and they are A+ advanced on the political / civic understanding of the world, which we love, slay, killing it. But I would caution being overly judgmental of somebody that's figuring it out, because that is oftentimes what, when we do social listening campaigns, we see. And I think sometimes too, when someone's lack of knowledge has resulted in a result that impacts you personally, and that's really hard to separate those emotions and the intellectual comprehension of those things. But I would offer the path of trying to figure out how you can make that person more educated on the systems around them, as opposed to being like, how did you not know that? I don't think that really has ever helped anyone. Like, I've never been approached by someone, like, not known something, and someone's been like, how did you not know that? And felt like, oh my God, well, now I want to learn more.
No, absolutely not. I'm like, oh shit, I should have known that.
Totally. Yeah, it definitely doesn't create the warm and fuzzies by any stretch of the imagination, or like inspire. And I think too, you don't want to get someone to be also more engaged by fear.
Not everybody sees themselves as an activist. How do you redefine activism so it feels more inclusive or doable?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the word activism and activist has like a weird stigma to it. I could probably do a whole study on it and figure out origins sometime in the last 10 years where it really took a turn. But I would say that you don't need to like fill the shoes of a label to be civically engaged, or, you know what I mean? Like, you don't need to, everything that you do when you advocate for yourself, even if like you're at work and you're asking for a day off, you're being an advocate, which therefore is like a derivative of activism. So I would say that like the expectation of what that means, I would bring it down a notch. It doesn't mean you have to be standing at a podium inspiring a crowd of 500 to, do something. Like, you also too, and I'll circle back to the commentary about being an influencer in your own friend group, like your own friend group and getting them to do something or to know more about something, like that's being an activist. And they're not little. These actions are part and parcel of that. That makes any sense.
No, it absolutely does. And that brings up another question. How do you approach those conversations with friends? I know you kind of gave us an example of your friends who were not registered to vote, but maybe people who are like apathetic towards politics or not engaged in it, or don't see the value or the impact of their political action? How do you have those conversations when it feels like you are kind of talking to a wall?
Totally. I mean, I would bring it up in an approachable way. And the way I always recommend this is like, say you see a news story, something's happened, is sharing that with like your group chat or a friend. Maybe it could just be an individual friend being like, hey, like saw this, like, what do you think of this? Like, what are your thoughts? And I would say always approach it without giving your thoughts first, because that puts you in a position where you can respond. Because at the end of the day, you can only control your response. You can't control theirs, right? So it puts you in a position where you get an understanding of where they may stand or what information they may have in their pocket that creates their viewpoint, whether that's the same as yours, different, or somewhere in between. But I would recommend that pathway. It's give them a moment to react to something, especially the person that's apathetic. I mean, if that's the case, they're not going to bring something up like that to you, or any of their other friends. Like that's just not going to be how they approach things. So that's how I would navigate that.
And for those who feel like they don't know enough to speak up, how do we push past that fear of messing up or not being perfect in those situations?
Totally. I think when you are wrong, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being wrong. And as long as you take accountability for it, right? So if you're called out for something, say, hey, like you're right. I now have new information available to me and I see that differently. It really is that simple. I do think fortunately, in the way that social media has put us into these sort of boxes that makes us feel like everything is cancelable, I think makes things particularly challenging, even in spaces where people don't have their own like social media platforms. Like I think that has like bled down to individual conversations amongst friends and colleagues and whatnot. So I would say more than anything, don't be afraid of being wrong. Know that if you could be wrong, that just by simply taking accountability and acknowledging that that's a possibility, you do quite a lot. And also like, hey, use it as an opportunity to learn more, ask more questions. I generally think like more questions you ask, the better. I think that's how to approach things. Again, no question is stupid. And if somebody makes you feel stupid for it, that's more telling than anything.
Says more about them than it does about
Yeah.
you. I really appreciate that example. I know a lot of people are running into that currently and wanting to talk about these things, but not knowing how. It also is a beautiful model for other people to realize that they can speak up and get it wrong, to be able to see you correcting yourself, taking accountability, and realizing the world doesn't end when that happens, and that actually you learn more and you become more resilient and you become stronger and smarter and all the things just by allowing yourself to get it a little bit wrong too.
For sure. And I would also add too, it's like if you think you don't know everything about a situation or a lane of something, think about where you're having that learning moment. Like maybe don't have it on social media.
That's fair.
Like you can, right. And like also too, like again, back to the friend group influencer situation, your learning moment and the learning moment for like your friend group is better in that situation than it is to have that online oftentimes. And so I would just recommend before you post something where you don't know all the information, think about it, take a beat.
And have those conversations. I've learned so much from my friend group conversations. There's a roommate in particular that comes to mind that taught me so much. And there were areas that I was wrong and there was areas I was misguided. And it wouldn't have given me that awareness to not have those conversations and to not get it wrong and to be open when you get it wrong.
Totally. Yeah. Being open to that too. And also I think most things in life aren't really black and white. I think there's a lot of gray area, and remembering that nuance exists and people have different life experiences, and that creates a whole story. It's the classic, there's three sides to every story. I very much believe in that in terms of, especially like life experience. So, it's being open to like those perspectives and not being really hardened to it's my way or the highway.
Absolutely. I believe truly that you can learn something from everybody, even small interactions at the grocery store or the gas station. There is an opportunity for learning with every interaction, and trying to remain open like that and willing to learn can have the world of a difference in your perspective and your growth.
For sure. Totally agree.
What are the top 3 simple ways someone can start being civically engaged today without needing to read 10 policy papers first?
For sure. First of all, I would look up who your member of Congress is and and your two senators. And I would add their office phone number to your contacts. You should be calling them regularly on issues you care about, even if you don't have a bill number or something, very specific, this exact vote or whatnot. You should be calling them and voicing your opinion on issues as much as you possibly can. So I would say that does not require a PhD. Looking up the number. There's also the general board number you can add as well. So that would be like piece one. Piece two, very biased. Sign up for my Monday newsletter. Has a lot of news items in it, and it also, I try and write it in a funny way. I know things are crazy, but we have to laugh sometimes. I think laughter is savior to all. So keeping that in mind, that's sort of the style of the newsletter and can get you up and ready. And then last but not least, I would look up what elections are coming near you. Every year is an election year. There are lots of races to start paying attention to all over the place. And again, does not require a PhD. It requires a quick Google, see what is happening near you, see what those dates are. And I would say, add to calendar, make yourself a calendar invite. If you have early voting, take advantage of it. That way you can, sort of do things on your own timeline. And wait, hold on. Obviously within that, make sure you are registered to vote. Like absolutely double check and check your registration. Even if you're like, yes, I am registered to vote. Like I've done this before. Make sure your registration is up to date and all things are good. You don't want to show up and then be like, there's an error, there's an issue. It's like, I've personally booked a reservation for dinner and showed up the wrong day before, and that sucks. You don't want to have this situation with a more important thing, So those would be the first 3.5, because I guess that last one was a little bit of a 0.5er, but
I appreciate it. And I appreciate the humor. Your attitude towards everything is really what drew me to you and your brand. It is easily digestible, it's humorous, and gets you through the news cycle that you're delivering.
Trying our best out here,
It's all you can do, honestly.
Agreed.
If someone only has 5 minutes a day for civic action, what should they do with it?
That is a great question. I would say being informed is like the bee's knees more than anything. I would pick a newsletter a day that you are going to read for your civic engagement. My newsletter is on Mondays, but there are tons of other. Punchbowl, they have a daily newsletter. Politico has a daily newsletter. The Hill. I would read one political newsletter that's center every single day. I'd use that 5 minutes to inform yourself on what's happening throughout the day. Because the more informed you also are too, the more you can actually do something of, and also the more patterns you'll see of certain things and of certain people.
No, absolutely. Being informed, I think I would have to agree, is number one. If civic wellness had a morning routine, what would be in it? I know.
Oh yeah, well, obviously reading a newsletter. I would say reading a newsletter for sure. I would also give a little podcast moment as well. I would say also too, within that, loving to counter a little bit of /civic engagement with something that's fun, that brings you joy, right? So you can flip flop what that is. Maybe it's a political podcast one morning and it's a wellness / yoga focused newsletter. I would have a variety pack of flip-flopping between the two of those and really just using that as your information gain time. And again, information in the fun context to keep you rolling and information in the serious to keep you understanding, sort of where things are going and headed and all of that. So those would be the two essentials I would say. And then obviously it would have a lot of coffee involved, a lot, and iced.
So much better. Top tier. I love
for sure.
Variety visual. That makes me very happy. Just have your variety pack that you can pull from in the back.
Totally. I think again, yeah, it's all about the balance and having a little bit of variety and different voices. Even within, for example, the political newsletter and podcast space, one morning, listening to the daily, right? Great. And another morning listening to Punchbowl has a little mini podcast as well. So you're hearing different voices, you're hearing different ways the information is conveyed to you. And I think no matter what side of the aisle you are on, that is important to have a varied news diet. And that has to be intentional because it's really easy to get set on just, okay, I like this one podcast, this one newsletter, this one TV show, whatever it is, and not changing it up. And I think it's important to have that change up because you will notice the differences between the words that people use, the way in which how they start, even like the headline, what does that look like? And I think thinking about how things are presented in different ways is really, really important.
Absolutely. Media literacy is everything. Speaking of other voices, your work actively brings in new and often missed voices into the political sphere. Who are some of those missed faces, and what are the barriers that they are facing?
Yeah, I mean, so many missed voices, but I would say that there are, it's a funny combination, like missed in a sense, but also uplifted in other ways. Like I think of like Jessica Valenti, who is an amazing journalist in the abortion space, and she is doing like groundbreaking work. Same with Erin in the Morning, who is doing groundbreaking journalistic work in the trans space. Absolutely incredible. And so it's like missed voices in the sense of like these should be people that are on next level platforms, and they often are. Sometimes they do get really great media hit opportunities for sure, and they have great platforms and great followings and communities, but these are some of the people like really digging in the weeds, telling incredibly heartbreaking stories and policy stories that, I think really need to be on that next level, because they are covering what's really happening. And especially the redder the state you go, the crazier it gets. And, that in and of itself, I mean, they're really putting themselves in harm's way doing the work that they do. So a huge shout out to them. And again, that push pull of like, they have these great platforms, but also it's like, they should be even bigger. Like they should be really the cornerstone.
I agree. And I'll make sure to link their profiles too in the episode description. Sometimes people feel like posting on socials is enough. What's your take on the difference between performative activism and meaningful civic engagement?
I think if you're going to post something on your story, if you're going to do it, that's great. Like that creates influence too, right? Someone seeing something, they may see a perspective that's different from theirs or a story that they hadn't known about. And I think that's important because again, it's that information game. But I think if there's an action item attached to that, like there's a call you could make, there's an email you could send, person you could connect with so-and-so. Before you post that, do that action. Like I think there has become this, frustration too, especially where it feels as though someone's posting something, they're not doing the action, but also in terms of elections that aren't even showing up to vote, right? So I think there needs to be sort of each person needs to be accountable on that. If you're going to post something, I would also ask, besides doing the action question to self, is why are you posting it? What is your reason? Is your goal awareness on that situation, or is it personal validation? And honestly, you could probably ask that question to yourself all day long about everything. And it might really help.
I'm going to add that to my list.
Do checklist. No, literally, like, so I would just say like that performative piece is really frustrating. And I think that sometimes that performative lane got us a little bit to how we are here today. If people were actually doing the actions that they were posting on their Instagram story, we wouldn't have this outcome.
I agree.
So it's like, oh, like, yeah, I did it. It's like, no, you didn't. You posted something in your story. And I will say this, because there's the counter to it. Again, that influence piece. Someone may have seen that story and then taken action. Like I deal with this in like sort of the marketing sphere all the time of like, the sort of the qualitative and the quantitative piece of things. So say, for example, in an article, like I pitch a client for an article, they're in it, and there is a backlink to their website. Great. I can count how many clicks that link got, and I can be like, okay, you got 4,000 clicks. Great. But what's not counted is how many people like saw that article or were shared on it or whatever, and like thought about that brand or that company and went back at a later date and made a purchase or went to their website another way, or like not through that direct link. So that had influence outside of the only thing that I could quantitatively count. So with the social media piece of it, like there is definitely the uncountable portion of that, of like, what does that influence look like? Like we can't quite qualify it. But I do think, again, to that larger point, like if everyone were doing what they were portraying they were doing on their stories, we would be in a different situation.
I know. I dream of it still.
Yeah, I know. One day.
I know. And if you are a parent listening right now who is raising change makers in a world that feels overwhelming, I've got something special for you. Raising Justice, Parenting and Activism for Everyday Resistance is a practical guide brought to you by yours truly that helps you turn everyday parenting moments into meaningful change. Inside, you'll find simple, at-home ways to take action, age-appropriate conversation starters, and tools to talk about big topics like racism, consent, and equity without the overwhelm. Because your parenting isn't separate from the movement. It is the movement. Parenting is powerful, and we have a chance at making a powerful impact for the next generations. Grab your copy of Raising Justice at blumera.co. The link is in the episode description. Now let's get right back into the interview. How do we keep people involved after big election moments when the energy usually starts to die down?
Yeah. I mean, trust me, I get it. Like, especially like the first like week or two after, and you're trying to get your bearings and understand, wow, like where are we going from here? What's our plan? It is a little bit chaotic feeling, and I totally get it. I would say give yourself the break right after an election. Typically, just give yourself a week or two, like sit in it, sit in the results, sort of figure out, okay, like reflection moment. But after that, like I said earlier, there is always an election. There is always something to be engaged in, and oftentimes those are the things that like end up being the most important. I mean, Wisconsin just had a state Supreme Court race, special election, right? And that just determined the lean of the court in that state and all of the issues that will come up from it. I mean, that was an after election in terms of the presidential, right? So we have lots of those situations, so many moving parts. So there will always be, or there always is that moving part. So I would say look for what that next moving part is.
Love that. I need to stop saying that. That's one of the things that like I always
Oh my God.
being like, I love that. I love that.
Oh my God. No, same / that could be like honestly like its own reel. Like just the I love it reel.
I love that. There's gonna be like so many clips of me in different outfits, just like I love that. I love that. It's like Paris Hilton's That's Hot.
Honestly,
I mean,
viral moment.
Yeah. In your election debrief episode, you talked about entering our villain era. Love that. There you go again.
Yeah.
What does that mean for political engagement, especially for women, femmes, marginalized folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's this larger counter to sort of what the Dems have been doing to put a political label on it for years, which is really just being a little bit too soft around the edges and being afraid of our own shadow and the cancelability of everything and, you know, sort of shrinking the tent in a way. And I think there needs to be this approach of, no, like, girl, you're in danger. Like, we have to, you know, put up an actual fight. And that means using fighting words and taking actions that mean something. And you know, obviously, look, safety comes first. If it puts you in a dangerous situation, do not do it. Like, absolutely do not do it. Everyone knows their own situation individually. By no means am I advising putting yourself in danger. So be aware of that when I say that. But I do think as a whole, for those that are going to be vocal or are going to use the means that they can, yeah, why are we being nice about it? Like, they're not being nice about it. So what?
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Within legal means, okay? Within legal means, people.
How do we keep people from falling into that hopelessness that we all sort of get when the news feels like a constant flood of chaos, regression, or American fever dreams?
No, seriously, it is so easy to. I mean, you just pop open Insta or TikTok for a second, and it really is quite bananas out there. It's why actually, for twofold reasons, I started doing a section about a year and a half ago in our newsletter called Good News Bears, and it highlights Dems / also just good political news. Sometimes it's a really bipartisan thing, and I can't really just attribute it to like this is a Dem win, but oftentimes it's sort of the highlight, and those get lost in the sauce. Even if we were in a different environment right now, those wins get lost. So obviously very biased yet again, I recommend checking out the newsletter and sort of seeing those come in. But I also would say that if there is an elected, whether it's yours or one in another state, right, that you align with, you feel like, oh, I really like, I'm intrigued by what they're saying and I really feel aligned, I would recommend signing up for their newsletters, their press releases, and also looking at the press release / news section of their website, because oftentimes like they're introducing bills or have gotten a win that you might not have heard of. So I would use that as sort of like the bulletin board to go back to, make that, your lane, pick that person, or it could be more than one person, and sort of see, what's happening there too. Because I think also the more you know about what they're up to, you can also reflect that back on yourself and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know about that issue, or, oh, well, I do really care about that more than I realized and whatnot. So I think that's a way to sort of super hyper focus and find some positives. Again, find that person or, a few people, check out their press releases, check out their newsletters. I will say, and I will flag this in advance, some electeds or candidates, especially like electeds, like do a better job than others in terms of their comms. Some write great fact sheets and amazingly clear press releases. You're like, oh my God, I get it. And others, it's like, like reading something from 1795. And if that's the case, even if you're like aligned, it's not going to be the one that's going to give you hope in that way. And I would even muster to say is that's not going to be the person leading us into the future, because it doesn't work, which is why we're here. So, yeah. So that would be my quick advice on that.
Great suggestion. And so when the world does feel heavy, how do we turn civic action into an act of self-care, or like rebrand it into self-care instead of self-sacrifice?
Totally. And there is that fine line, right? Of like almost a little bit of like martyrdom feel of like, well, if I just consume one more piece of information, I'll be that much more informed. I do one more action, like, but to, sort of like what end? And so when you're trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to approach this? How am I going to rebrand this? I would write down the 3 actions you want to take. The 3 next steps could be reading another newsletter, could be watching some clips, it could be calling your representative, whatever it might be. These are just a handful, examples, obviously. And I would look at those 3 and I would say, okay, what are these going to do? What is the result of these 3? And figure out what that will actually look like. And if you feel as though, okay, well, this didn't further what I care about more, take a break from it. Doesn't mean like nix it forever, but give it a moment and do the ones that you feel like, okay, wait, that does get me closer to my goal. So that's what I would do.
That reminds me, I have a Feminine Rage book club. Very
love it.
I know. Love it. Hey, it's working. And we talk a lot about picking your lane. In every meeting, we're kind of like, where is your place and what can you do? Instead of trying to do it all and fit into all of the places and make all of the change, where do you fit in? What is your lane? What is your specialty? What is your talent? And after this last election, that has been a saving grace for me. Like being able to, instead of getting overwhelmed with all of the 75 things that I could do, I'm like, okay, here are the 5 calls I can make. Here is the 5 emails I can send. And then I work on my podcast. I'm like, this is my small little space to make change. And this is where I have impact. And this is where I feel drawn to. And I think that it really helps to remind yourself that you have a lane and a part and a job. And I have toddlers. So like Daniel Tiger says, no job is too small. Everybody's job is important. We all help in different ways.
1,000%. I think that's just right. And it's, if there's a lane that doesn't work for you, that's okay. Like I think that also can contribute to sort of like the barriers to entry of people feeling like I have to do it all. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case. Like I'm horrendous at math. Okay. So me working on a campaign as the essential CFO, hilarious. Literally, oh my God, no way. So it's like knowing that about yourself, like, okay, that's not going to be the space. That doesn't mean I can't help or I can't work on a campaign or one of the gazillions of other things you could be doing. It just means, oh no, that's not for me. Like, no.
And trust that somebody else has that. He's got that,
1,000%. And if anything, use it as an opportunity to like bring other people into the space that like would be good at those things. Like if like I have friends that are great at math, I'm like, okay, gonna call them up and that's what their role is gonna be.
That's another great friend group conversation. I love that. I need to stop. What would you say to someone who's burned out from fighting but feels guilty stepping back?
Oh, feels that. Let me tell you, totally. I would say that if you are entirely burnt out, like you are only harming yourself and also the larger group trying to participate in, movement activities. So give yourself the break. Like it's okay to take a break. Go off your phone for a week. I think it's allowing yourself and giving yourself the permission to take that break. It's allowed, it's
recommended, honestly.
For sure. Go for a walk, like eat a cookie, whatever it is for you that like gives you that break. There's times like I literally work in social media full time, right? There are days where I'm like, today is not it. It is not it. I would rather have a day where I like lose technically like that day of not posting stuff than post things that I'm so burnt out. Like half of them have insane typos. I'm not paying attention. The content's shitty. Like that's not effective. It's not doing anything besides checking a box. That's a box I provide for myself, right? Like no one is out there going like, well, Sammy only posted 3 times in the last 48 hours. And oh my God, she must not care about democracy anymore. Like no one is doing that. And if they are, then like, honestly, they need help. But like maybe a hobby. I've been like a really big proponent of people bringing back hobbies. I interviewed a congressman the other day who is such a riot, and he used to go parahawking, which was an activity I had never heard of and I had to research. Very cool. It's like paragliding, but there's a hawk guiding you. I was like, this is wild for the bird conspiracy theory people. Like, I was like, this is going to be, somehow they haven't found that video yet. I was like, we're good. Crazy. But regardless, I was like saying to him, I was like, this is great. Like, this is a hobby, like men with hobbies. We need more of this. We need everyone with hobbies, but like particularly men. So I would say like, hey, like if you're taking that break, like use it to do something that you like, because that bringing you joy is going to like put you back in like a headspace where like you can help others. Like it's the classic, like this is such a like done analogy, but it's just forever accurate. It's like when you're on a plane, you need to put the mask on first before you can help others, right? So like otherwise got two dead people. I mean, it's not helpful.
It doesn't help anyone. If you can't help yourself,
Yeah.
you can't help other people. How do you personally cope with rage, grief, or despair that's tied to politics, injustice, or systemic harm?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I work out. That's like a huge part of it. That sounds so lame, but like genuinely, like movement is everything. And trying to like move through like what you're processing, like physically, is such a release and just so needed. So I would say like that's first and foremost, like how I handle it is I work out. I also, I hang out with friends. We talk about obviously everything that's going on, but we also make a point of talking about other things as well. So it's like a funny thing because that seems so silly and almost like you're ignoring the issue, but it's like, no, you sometimes do need to like disassociate a little bit and, talk about other things. Again, Bravo is always sort of the topic of conversation, dare I say, right? But
Summer politics,
it's
summer house.
yeah, it's oh my God, literally classic, the swing. But I would say in terms of processing, for me, it's working out and being able to get outside of the only politics moment, which oftentimes it can be so hard, right? Like everything is political. Everything is connected. I could literally look at all the things around this room and I could talk about the electricity and where that comes from and how that is political. I could talk about what the lamp is made out of and where it's made and how that's political and how that connects to human rights abuse, right? Like I could like literally everything is a political result / decision. So it takes a moment for sometimes myself to be like, okay, need to just hit pause on that. Like that is a reality that doesn't doing something outside of like a direct political conversation doesn't mean that those things aren't true anymore. They are very true. They just they can stop, that conversation can stop for a moment and you can go on a different conversation too.
I agree. I also use moving my body to help cope with a lot of that, especially like walking and being outside in nature. You get the double side of being around greenery, lowering cortisol levels, and then walking is also physically moving yourself away from something. And I always like to think of those problems behind me. And I'm like, cool, I'm a mile away from them now. Like I'm a mile and a half now. I'm 2 miles. And it's so satisfying. Or even hiking. I love hiking mountains too. And so it's like you are literally overcoming something. And with every step that's like hard, I'm like, I'm just overcoming this. It's okay. And putting action to those emotions.
Totally. No, I love that. I always crack up too of like, you just go on like a little walk, like a little mental health walk, like it'll make a difference. And then you like go on the walk and it's like, yeah, God damn it, it really did make a difference. Which like honestly, when it's warm out, great.
Yeah.
Great. Like, I'll walk to the ends of the earth. Like, let's be so real. The winter is where I personally struggle. I don't know about you, or I'm like, if it's like I'm cold under 60 degrees. So that's where I'm always, if TikTok shop's going to get me to buy anything, it is a walking pad.
Yes.
Haven't done it yet, but
On the list.
like, oh, I do not need this, but I do need this. But like, yeah.
So, for those in our community who have felt silence or disempowered, especially survivors or those from marginalized backgrounds, what's your advice for re entering the civic space in a way that feels safe and empowering for them?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, right? Like this, especially like this environment right now. My goodness, I would say keep your circle small. Do things bit by bit. You don't have to be the public megaphone. That doesn't have to be your role. Again, it comes down to sort of, again, like what is your role in this? Your role might have previously been to be a megaphone in a certain space or on a certain issue. That doesn't mean that you have to in the same way. Again, maybe focus back on, okay, how can I be an influencer to my friends? How can I be an influencer to my family? How can, the group volleyball team that I'm a part of or something like that, right? Like, how can I keep this influential and my impact going, but without putting myself in an untenable situation? Because again, safety first always. So I would say drill down, create create small community, because that community is also giving you support. So that's where to do it. Again, those small communities and all of our friend groups together, like, create an important mass, and we all have different roles to play. Your role can change, and that's okay.
I appreciate the creating a small space. Kind of in line with this question, I was at a party not too long ago, and I was speaking up against racism, sexism, jokes about violence against women, and I was met with sexual assault as retaliation for that. And I just really appreciate you really focusing on being safe. I can't go back and change what happened. I don't know if I would, honestly, but I think that knowing that you can keep yourself safe, and that should be the number one priority in any given space, is a huge intention to take into any form of activism. And I really appreciate you stressing keeping yourself safe.
For sure. It should be top of mind. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I think, we live in a very crazy world, and one that even before like this election, still very much in a growing pains era. And so it's that challenge of how do we move forward with, in certain respects, having to take risks, but also stay safe. And it's a fine line, and we're not always going to get it perfect, but that's where everyone needs to, do be like a little bit self-preserving, is thinking like, how can I make change while also, again, staying safe and making sure, your friends, your crew is safe too.
I completely agree. And that goes back to your putting your safety mask on before you help others. You can't be there to make a difference if you are not safe and if you are not there,
Right.
just point blank. How can civic engagement be a form of healing or reclaiming agency for someone who has experienced trauma or oppression?
For sure. I mean, I think it is a way of like fighting back, like directly of what harmed you, right? We can make change. We can change laws and situations that have harmed us. It doesn't go back and take that away, that experience, but that experience can guide how you move forward. And I think when it comes to, civics, it's okay, you now have that firsthand experience to know how a policy either impacted you or a lack thereof a policy. Because sometimes that's also the case, right? Like something that could have protected you from a legal standpoint wasn't there, or it was in one state and not another. So I think it's really about using that experience as a way to make pathways forward. That voice, that experience that you've had is unique to every person, obviously, but it's a way that it informs what we can do better, how we can change, how we can evolve, how we don't go back to the experience that person had, or the context that created it. So I would say that like that experience, it's almost like what is the word that I'm looking for? It's a little bit of like a secret power, or secret weapon a little bit. Like it gives you that lens that some other people don't have to actually make change and know exactly like what is the issue, what was that missing piece that directly resulted in your experience.
And having that perspective and lived experience has a lot of power in change making. I know after that sexual assault that I experienced, I went through a really hard healing period. And then when I came out in a little bit better of a place, I started looking at policy change. And I have been volunteering for a civil rights nonprofit that helps change policies for sexual assault survivors. It has been empowering for me to get my power back in that way, to try to make the change where change wasn't there. And I've noticed that there are a lot of people fighting for these causes who are just really passionate about it, and they know it's the right thing to do, and they can see the problems, but without that lived experience, like they need that emotion to sway these legislators to vote for the bill and to stand behind it. And if you look at just like a textbook answer versus somebody who has lived experience, and you can feel their emotion and you can see the impact that it's had, like you said, that's your superpower. And I really appreciate you using like that language too.
Of course. No, I really think it is. Again, it's your lens is unique, and that story is important, and that story can create better stories for other people. And I think that's also the, thing, and that I often see in the political space is a lot of, and not just uniquely political, I would say like the American experience, like, well, I didn't get that, or like that didn't help me. And it's like, okay, yes, and that deserves empathy that something didn't, protect you and whatnot. But how can we prevent this from happening going forward for all people. And looking at it as like your eye becomes a we.
Yes. And the impact that you can have. I know every week when I join the call, I have to say, I'm impacting 1.8 million survivors in my campaign state. And it just reminds me the impact that you can have and that you can turn your one bad experience into 1.8 million or more better experiences. And that's that many people who don't have to go through what you did or face that same barrier or be let down in the exact same way.
For sure. It's about creating a better future for all.
Yeah, I love that. How can we lean on community to keep going, even when it feels like everything is on fire?
No, literally, like
Because it
Smokey the
is.
Bear is literally like, I can't put out all these fires, like SOS.
Giving the flag.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, like thinking about community, it's thinking about, again, like sort of how you bring joy into that. And sometimes that might be watching a TV show, maybe it's going to a comedy show. And I think the core of like that community, it's also finding like light, levity, and humor. Humor to me is like always everything. And I think that even though, it's sometimes hard to find, there are humor in some of the situations going on. And maybe don't put them on social media. Don't be me. But I would say like there definitely are some interestingly so messed up they're funny scenarios. So use that as like a little bit of an LOL moment to keep you guys going. I would recommend. But also activities, back to the hobbies comment, right? Like hobbies can be like anything. It'd be like getting together and like learning how to like needlepoint and do something like that. It can also be like joining a pickleball league or creating your own. Like find activities that take your focus off of the situation at all times and like give your brain and brains really, let's make that plural, it's community, right? Time to relax a little bit. That's so important. Again, hobbies for all. That's going to be, I'm not someone that's going to run for office. I like being behind the scenes, but let me just tell you, if I ever did, it's going to be hobbies for all is the slogan.
HFA. Hashtag HFA.
Great platform, lots of options. We've got sporty, we've got sit down. It's like
Have a hawk paragliding? Was that
yeah,
hawk paragliding, right?
yeah. Like
Okay.
I mean, for people that like to be in the sky, I mean, like we've got something for everyone.
Yeah. There's something for everyone. That's the tagline.
Yeah.
Hobbies for all. There's something for everyone. What role, and you've kind of already talked about this, but what role does joy, humor, or pop culture play in making civic life more bearable or, dare I say, beautiful?
I think it's more than anything, it like helps explain it.
Mm-hmm.
It brings things down to what people are talking about anyways. And like I said before, like civics and government, all that stuff, it's convoluted. So, and anyone that says it's not, like I really have questions for.
So many questions.
So many questions. So, like to me, I think it provides like another way of learning. Like just think about like when you're in school, like some people are visual learners, some people are auditory learners, some people are like kinetic learners. Like there's so many variations of like ways to learn. And I think that like that whole lens is a variety pack of ways to learn. Okay. Someone like likes is better at learning about politics through Real Housewives analogies. Great. Great. That's
I'm on board.
cool. Like it's and so it's that sort of angle or a cartoon or whatever it is. It's not putting learning about anything in this category into a box. It doesn't work for like humanity in general, is like putting people in boxes, so I don't know how it would like be effective in terms of learning about politics.
Thank you so much for being here and making it funny and light and relatable and powerful all at the same time. This is an episode that is going to be sent to my friend group chat because it is so
Love it.
relevant. And I have no doubt it will be sent in many because there are so many conversations being had about these topics, trying to balance it all and trying to just get through it all. So I'm really grateful for your help with myself and others through all of that. You have a powerful change-making ability or superpower in this way to have that impact on people. And I'm grateful you shared some of it with me today.
Of course, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited to have more, civically engaged humans amongst us. And, we've got quite the road ahead of us, but we can, all do it in our own lanes together as a community and keep on rolling. So thank you for giving this platform to, chat on some of those methodologies.
Make sure you go and sign up for Sammy's newsletter. It's filled with weekly action items, so you don't have to do the research by yourself. And you can start your week out making a positive change. If you want to hear more about navigating difficult political climates or those difficult conversations with friends or family, go check out some of my recent episodes. I have interviews about navigating political differences with friends and family. I also have an episode on parenting during political unrest, which I highly recommend to any parents out there. As a reminder, you can get a copy of my guide, Raising Justice, Parenting and Activism for Everyday Resistance. My shop information is in the link description. And last but not least, make sure you are registered to vote. If you are listening in real time or not, it's crucial that you take that very first step.